Thank you for staying until the last lecture today. I'm sure everybody's tired, so I'm going to take it easy and we'll go through some slides very slowly. And I'll try to make sure that everybody understands what we're talking about. So my name is Dr. Shen Chen, and I'm from Taiwan. And this is actually not my first time here in Vietnam, so I'll talk a little bit about that. So today we're going to talk about aesthetic digital dentistry, which is my main focus in my clinical work. And specifically, we're going to talk about the digital portion and also the external staining techniques. So a little bit about myself. I am a dentist, but I also am an engineer. I actually graduated from Canada with 2 engineering degrees before I became a dentist. And right now I'm also doing a PhD program in dentistry, and my focus is on digital dentistry. So over the last few years, I've been to many different countries, like in Europe and in Asia, talking about aesthetic dentistry and digital dentistry. And I think this was my first time in Vietnam. I think this was Ho Chi Minh City, 2019, I want to say. And at that time, we were also talking about digital dentistry in general. We also had a workshop that time. This is such a long time ago, and where we did a CEREC workshop to do chairside dentistry with the local dentist. And some of the local dentists here also came to Taiwan to do our lectures and workshops in Taiwan, where we can actually do live patients to do chairside workflow with CEREC. And in my free time, I also teach students at universities also about digital dentistry. So you can tell my work is very involved in digital dentistry. So this is currently where I work. And this building, we have 3 floors, number 4, number 6, and number 7. And this is the departments that we have. So in our clinic, our departments are slightly structured a little bit differently. You can see on the bottom, we have orthodontics and family dentistry, so this is very typical. In the middle floor, we have periodontics, implant dentistry, and functional reconstruction, which is for full mouth reconstruction. So they do very difficult implant cases and periodontal cases. And on the top floor, which is my department, we have 5 dentists working in my departments where we do interior aesthetics. So this department is a little bit special because we don't specifically treat a certain type. We only treat the region, so we treat the interior portion of our patient. So if the patient says they want whiter teeth, they're missing a tooth in the front, or if they don't like their smile, this is the kind of treatments that we do. And right now we have 5 dentists. So these are my dentists working with me. So in our clinic, in my department, for interior aesthetics, basically we can come down to 3 different categories of treatments. We have ceramics, so this is what you would imagine if you're doing interior aesthetics, veneers, crowns, and so forth. We also do implants, and we do micro-orthodontics in-house. And all 3 of these are done with digital dentistry. So in terms of the workflow, we do intraoral scanning. Everything is completely digital, no models whatsoever. So today I want to focus on this portion, which is the fully digital, fully chairside, and fully stained restoration. Now I've talked about this before in Vietnam, and every time I show my cases, I think a few dentists have questions about whether the cases are real or not. And today I'm going to show you exactly how they're done, okay? So, just to prime everybody, I know digital dentistry is not very popular, I think, already in Vietnam. So I want to give you a very short part, just to prime everybody how I think about intraoral scanners and and digital dentistry. So this part is called the enabler. I want to ask you a question. What do you think came first? Electricity, or the use of electricity, or dental anesthesia? So think about back in your history class, what do you think came first? So for electricity, the first electric motor was invented in 1875. For dental anesthesia, the first use of lidocaine as an injection is 1940. You know what that means, right? That means there is an area, a region of time between 1875 and 1950 where we have motorized drills, but no anesthesia. So think about that. Okay, that means somebody who invented this, which is a very transformative invention, is very good. We all use it today, but there's no application because there's no anesthesia and it was not possible. So what we call an enabler is local anesthesia is something that enables other treatments to be possible. It enables what we do today. And this is how I think about intraoral scanners. So people who do not use intraoral scanners is like, for me, do not have anesthesia. There are a lot of cases that you cannot do because you do not have this workflow. And so today I'm going to show you the things that we can do. Okay? So in chairside dentistry, the difference between chairside and traditional dentistry is that we do everything in the lab. In the clinic. We have a lab in the clinic, so everything is done chairside. And the first mistake that people make when they do chairside dentistry is that they choose the wrong ceramic. So I'm going to quickly review the 4 steps to digital workflow. The first step is obviously we take some data, we take some photos, we take some scans, and we do a pre-op design. This could be your smile design, this could be your staining or your color choice whatsoever. The second part is we do the actual reduction, and then we do the post-op design, which is the actual designing of the veneers, and then we deliver. And this all happens within the same day. Okay? And because this happens within the same day, there are some limitations. And the limitations is that we, as dentists, we have to choose the ceramic. Right now, when you're doing traditional ceramic dentistry, you're probably writing out, the ceramic or the color that you want. You don't actually choose the ceramic that you use. But in chairside dentistry, we have to be familiar with what ceramics to choose. So when we look at a case like this is a full mouth case. In order to make it more look realistic, there are some things that we have to do, right? So there are 2 parts. The first part is we have to choose the right ceramic color. And once we choose that, then if you look at all these details, we have gradients, we have incisal features, and we have some halo effects. On the left is a choice that we made. On the right is the staining that we did. Okay? So this is what makes chairside veneers biomimetic. What we can do to make it look more natural. So if we look at the blocks that we have, this is the Photoshop of the blocks that we have in our clinic. Everything looks kind of the same, right? It's very difficult to look at this and then just choose the ceramic that we want. Okay? But if you look closely, you can kind of reduce it down to 2 basic components of ceramic. We have value, which is how bright it is, and then we have chroma, which is how colorful it is. That's it. Basically, every ceramic has 2 properties, the value and the chroma. So the chroma talks about whether it is very saturated, like very, very orange, or not. The value is about whether it's very white and bright, or not. Okay? And in practical cases, if you look at the ceramics, this is actually what it looks like. On the left, we have high value blocks, low chroma. On the right, we have low value because they're not very bright, but they're very colorful. And so this is the chroma. So this is how we should think about ceramic selection. If we have chroma and if we have value, the X marks our target. So imagine you're doing a case, single veneer. X is where we want the color to be, okay? If you look at the drawers of the ceramics, there are many different types. Maybe for this brand of ceramics, you have this many different colors combination. For the next brand of ceramics, you have this. For the third, and you have this. Okay? Can we choose any one of them to make it work into the X position? We cannot. Okay? So here is the logic and how we can reduce the selection to make it easier for us. So it's very rare that we can mill something from a block and then put it into the patient and have deliver it to be perfectly fine. If you look on the left, this is a milled veneer. It won't look very good. And the reason it won't look very good is because it doesn't look natural. It doesn't have all the natural tendencies of a real tooth. So what we need to do is we need to stain it. So on the right, this is the same veneer, but stained. Once you stain it, you notice two things happen. The color becomes more saturated, so the chroma goes up. The value becomes darker, so the value goes down. It always happens this way. When you go from a mill block to a stained block, the value goes down, it becomes darker, and the chroma goes up. So, what does that mean? That means if we come back to this graph here, if I choose this ceramic and I stain it, what's going to happen? The value can go down, right? The value can go down, or the value can go down and the chroma can go up. So these two positions are okay. It can become darker and more orange. But it can't go this way. Why? Because when you stain it, the value has to go down. So it cannot move laterally. And of course, the value cannot go up. So it cannot go any of those. And can you move the chroma down? Can you move the chroma that way? You cannot. When you stain something, you cannot make it less colorful. You can only make it more colorful. So that arrow is also gone. This means that this ceramic choice here, there's only two positions it can go into. It can become darker or darker and more orange. So this limits the number of ceramics that we can choose, right? That means if X is the position that we want to be at, and if we draw a line like this, which quarter do you think is the ceramics that we can choose? If all the ceramics can only go to the bottom and to the right, that means none of these quarters we can choose, right? Because when we choose those ceramics and we stain them, it goes even further down to the right, and it will never reach X. So we can only choose the ceramics on the top left. So this limits our ceramic choice a lot. So this is a very easy way to kind of limit the selections that we have. Now, what about ceramics that are really far away? They're still on the upper left, but it's kind of far away. You can choose those, yes, but how do I get them, those 3 yellow circles, to get to X? You have to stain them. And every time you stain, it moves a little bit. Every time you stain, it moves a little bit. So in order to get the yellow into the X position, you're going to stain many, many, many times. And this is not a good idea, because when you fire too many times, the ceramics can lose material integrity and it becomes weaker. So we don't want to choose those either. Okay, so we want to choose ceramics that are close to our target position. Okay, so now we have a very easy way to limit where we can choose the ceramics. Now, a lot of the times, if we have a shade tab like this, so we have an A1 shade tab, and if you go to your lab, so by the way, the things I'm talking about today is chairside, yes, but most of the labs are doing the same thing, right? More and more labs are becoming more digital because the lab technicians, they don't want to be spending time doing layering. They want to use machines to mill. So if you have a shade tab like this A1 shade tab, and then you tell the lab that this is the color that I want, and if they choose this A1 block, what's going to happen? Right? It looks like the perfect choice, right? But what's going to happen? Well, this is going to be the wrong choice. Why? Because when we mill something like this, this color is also affected by 3 things. Its intrinsic translucency, which is the actual translucency of the ceramic. That's why some ceramics like Emax have HT, MT, LT, high translucency, medium translucency, low translucency. So its internal translucency will also affect it. It's also affected by the thickness. So if you are doing very thin veneers, it's going to change the color. It's also affected by the stump color. So if you choose the A1 block, because you gave the lab technician the A1 shade tab, you're going to make the wrong choice. It's going to become too dark, right? So when we look at a veneer like this, there are two components. This is the intrinsic translucency, and then these are the fake translucencies that we added with staining. Okay? So let's come back to this case. That means we're going to have to stain, and we don't want our ceramic blocks to be too close to our block, to our shade tab, right? If I choose A1 for the shade tab, I don't want to choose A1 for the ceramic, because if I use the A1 ceramic and I mill it, it's going to be thinner, it's going to be affected by the stump color, and the actual translucency of itself is going to make everything dark. So you've made the wrong choice. And this is the biggest problem that a lot of people have. When we do workshops around the world, people ask me, why does my veneer doesn't look right? It's because you are tricked. You think your A1 shade tab should match the A1 block, but it shouldn't. Okay? So that means we actually don't want our selection to be too close to our shade tab. Okay? So now our selection is completely limited. And this is how we do it clinically in our clinic. Basically, when we do interior aesthetics like this, when I look at a shade, I'm thinking about this graph, and I'm minimizing the number of the ceramics that we can do. And if you choose correctly, then you can mill something with very, very minimal staining. You can deliver something with very, very minimal staining. So this is self-renewal with very minimal staining. Okay? Now, I want to show you a clinical case on how this can affect us. So this is an implant case. Today we're not talking about implants, so I want to skip this very, very quickly. But this patient came in 6 years ago, I think. 6 years ago. And so, long story short, we did a chairside dentistry for her, and then 6 years later, she came back. Everything is still looking okay, but there's some stains, but things are looking okay. Now, I want you to notice that she has a bridge on tooth number 22. So that is the pontic. She came back and she said to me that she hasn't been back for a while, and she said that another dentist suggested to her that she should do an implant in this position. I don't think she should do an implant because everything looks good, but she was convinced that she should do an implant. But she doesn't want to do it with that dentist, so she came back to me and asked for my opinion. So I said, okay, if we want to do an implant, we could do it. But I know that there's going to be a problem with ceramic selection. Why? Why? So this is Emax. This is all Emax. This has an abutment inside. This has an abutment inside. This is going to have an implant inside. So it's going to have a different material inside. And it's going to be much thicker as well. Right? So I think there are a lot of confused faces, so I'm going to go through this and you're going to see why. So for this case, typically we have a lot of very thin ridges for Asian female patients in Taiwan. And then so we open it up, and then this is not the focus today, but basically we did a kind of like an open book ridge splitting procedure, and then did the grafting. So then I grafted it up, sutured it up, and this is what we get. Okay? So now I can insert the scan post, which is for the scanning, for the intraoral scanner, and then do a temporary. So with this temporary, this is an actual implant right now, but this is on a temporary. I'm trying to check to see if I need to do any soft tissue manipulation, but because her smile doesn't show any gingiva, so this is okay. Now, if I'm doing an implant next to a crown, the biggest difference between the crown and an implant is that inside the implant, we have a very thick ceramic, right? Implant abutments are thinner than an actual abutment. We would like to use one-piece ceramics, so zirconia, if we can. We don't want to use something like Emax or other ceramics because studies have shown that Emax and other ceramics are not very good for biology. But we don't want to use zirconia in this case. Why? Because we have a zirconia implant next to two Emax crowns. It's going to be very difficult to make zirconia look like Emax. But we don't want to use Emax. So what can we do? I know that this ceramic thickness will be very thick. If I use one piece, it's going to look different than the abutments, right? Because the thickness of the ceramic affects what it looks like. So then what we decided to do was to make it into two pieces. So you can see on the left, we have a zirconia abutment, and then on the right, we have an Emax veneer on the zirconia abutment. So this way, we can join everything together, and then have only Emax on the outside, and the same thickness of Emax on the outside, so that they will look exactly the same. So this is when she returned 6 years, and this is after our implant treatment. You can see on the first quarter, number 11 and number 12, that's the same tooth. Okay, I just cleaned it up. On this side, this is the implant with the zirconia and an Emax that has the same thickness as the neighbors, so that they will look exactly the same. And because we did this digitally 6 years ago, so I actually have the information I need to copy these teeth, right? We have to redo this. This is not the same tooth because this was a bridge. But I know how thick this is. I know what material I use. I know what shade I use. And I know what my preparation looks like. So I can prepare exactly the same as that to make everything look the same. So even though they're 6 years, one is 6 years old, one is new, you can make them look the same. So that's the case about ceramic selection to make everything look more harmonious. Now, the next part I want to talk about is sometimes it's not possible just to make a good selection and have everything look good, right? A lot of times we need to do actual external staining. So in this video, I want you to look at these jellyfish, and it looks like they're translucent, they're transparent, right? It looks like you're seeing through them, but you're actually not, because this is a video. There's nothing to see through, right? You can't see through anything. This is just a video. So if we stop at one frame and look at this actual image, it's basically just 3 different colors, showing you a fake translucency that our eyes see, and we think that it's translucent. So this is the same idea as when we do external staining. If we have raw tooth like this, just milk, and if we stain it, like those on the right, then we can make it look like it has translucency, even though it does not. So this is fake translucency. This is needed when intrinsic translucency is not enough, right? When we have intrinsic translucency, the actual translucency of the ceramic is not enough, then we have to stain it to make it look even more translucent. And then so there are basically just a few steps to this. Usually we use gray, blue, and purple on the incisal edges. Then we use blue and gray on the contact. And then we use orange and yellow and orange-yellow colors or red colors on the body. So this is basically the 3 steps that we do, and the very similar colors for basically all human teeth to stain it so that it looks translucent. So this is before, and this is after. This is entirely just stained without layering, without cutting back. The whole process, including the firing, takes about 30 minutes. And of the 30 minutes, 20 minutes of it is actually in the oven. And so with this technique, what we can do is we can stain restorations to make it look like natural teeth. And it's very important to overstain. So if you look at it on the top here, it looks like that teeth has been stained a lot, right? It has a lot of staining. All the features are very prominent. But this is the actual delivery photo. So if you look at the delivery photo, you'll notice that it actually isn't that prominent. Okay? So this is how we use staining to achieve the biomimetic look. And there are, just to show you some other examples that we can do. So these are all single visits, one visit cases where we do everything in a single day and stained in about 30 minutes or so. Okay? And on the bottom, I've shown you the actual design file so you can tell which one it is, and so on and so forth. Okay. All right, so this last part, I want to get into a complete workflow of a digital case to show you how exactly we put everything together. So this gentleman is about 50-ish years old, 52, 53. And when he first came, this is the condition that we're faced with. And his primary complaint was that he wanted to fix his teeth. He doesn't like the way that his teeth look. He likes to make it more straight, make it more white, make everything look better, but he cannot do orthodontics because of his work. Okay? So the first thing that we need to do is decide whether we can do this using chairside in one visit. Sometimes it's not possible. Okay? And so the first thing that we need to do is then to collect data. So this is what he looks like on the left. This is the photo. And then usually for the photo, I'm not sure if I can take the right photo all the time. So usually I take a video so that I can capture the way that he speaks and how much teeth he's showing. Okay? So I want you to take a look at his teeth, and recognize that the fact that it doesn't look straight is not so much because it's crooked, but it's actually more because we see an outline that isn't straight. So if I draw the outline here, you can see it, right? When we see a patient, when we see somebody from afar, we're not looking closely to look at every single tooth to see if they're straight. Nobody cares about that. When we look at a person, we are actually seeing, the first thing we see is the outline of the teeth. So that's the primary concern that I'm going to have. Can I fix this outline? Okay, because I think if I can fix this outline, then I think we can do this treatment. So during the actual data collection, I would take the photos that I showed you before, and also the video, but also the intraoral scans. So we can see from the front, and you can see from the occlusal. And if you look at this occlusal scan, you'll know that this is bad news, right? His teeth are actually quite crooked. So I don't know if I can actually do this just using restorations. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to know if I can space out my restorations properly. What does that mean? That means whether if I do the restorations, is it going to look symmetric? Do I have enough space to make it look like the teeth on the left will look like the teeth on the right in terms of the width of the teeth? So during this phase, as I'm looking at this model on the computer, I'm deciding whether I can actually fit my veneers in there to make it look like the spaces are equal. And luckily, it looks like it could be possible, right? I don't know yet, but it could be possible. So the next thing is, I'm going to draw an arch form and then look at how much reduction I need to do. How much actual reduction I need to do. If you look at number 21, you'll notice that because it's disto flared out, there's going to be a lot of reduction that I need to do, right? If you look at tooth number 23, the canine, all same thing, mesial out, so a lot of reduction. But more importantly, tooth number 22 is slightly more powerful, right? What does that mean? Remember the last case I showed you with an implant. When the ceramic is thick, it's going to change the way the ceramic looks. So that tooth could have a problem. Because for the other teeth, for number 21 and 23, I can just reduce more and then maybe do endodontics to get the thickness that I want. But for tooth number 22, there's actually a minimum that I can get, right? Because the tooth is already there. So I need to pay attention. So now, This is just to reiterate what I just said. So tooth number 22, the thickness of the ceramic will be actually quite thick. So now, once I have all the data that I want, I can actually do the smile design. So I'm spacing on this teeth to see if I put the ceramics in these positions, is it going to look right? So far, everything looks like it could work. Okay? And then so this is a very quick smile illustration of what it could look like, and I'm showing it to him to see whether he likes the way this looks. And so he took a look at this and he said, yes, but he would like the teeth to be white. And I said, okay. It's very common for our patients to like really white teeth, but that's okay. So it looks like it could work. So now it's time to do it. So the first step we need to do is actually to insert the mock-up. So the mock-up comes from the actual scan that we took in the consultation phase, and then with the DSD design, with the smile design, I transfer the smile design to the lab, so the lab can fabricate a 3D mock-up for me, which I will insert into the patient's mouth. So on the right, you can see this is the mock-up. And again, take a look at number 22. You'll see that the thickness of that tooth will be quite thick. This means that if I'm choosing the ceramic, and I need to choose between high translucency, medium translucency, and low translucency, what should I choose? I shouldn't choose high translucency, right? Because if it's a high translucency, it will be very much affected by the thickness. If it's very translucent and it's very thick, it will look very different from if it's very thin. If it's a low translucency, it might not look so different. So at this point, I already know that there are some ceramics that I cannot choose. Okay? So this is the mock-up. And during the mock-up phase, because the patient has anesthesia, so he's not going to be able to smile properly. And I don't really care about the whole smile. I'm just looking at the overall outline of the teeth to see if they look harmonized. So at this point, I'm looking and I said, okay. And he's looking, he thinks that the teeth are looking harmonized. So everything looks like they're on track. So this is the preparation that we have for him. And on the bottom, we have a scan. And you can see here that the tooth number 22, again, the thickness will be just slightly more than the others. And this is the design in in-lab. Compared to the mock-up, they look, it's reference, so they look the same. And this is our design also in in-lab. And I just wanted to take a cross-section of tooth number 22. I know I keep coming back to this, but this tooth has got me very worried because I know ceramic is going to look different depending on the thickness. So at this point, I'm just checking the thickness of the ceramic to see if it's too much. If it's too much, I need to make some changes, okay? So this is the delivery, this is the try-in. So at this point, the patient still has anesthesia, so we're just trying it to see if it works. And on the bottom, now the bottom is slightly different because the patient has one tooth, tooth number 41, that is too far out of position. So I try to convince him to do a micro-orthodontics where we can move it in about 2 months or so. But he really doesn't, like, he cannot do orthodontics because of his work. He has to speak every day. And then so instead we just do a preventative endodontics, and we do endodontics on that. And so you can see that we've done endodontics. And this is the delivery, this is the design also in in-lab, and this is the delivery. And so, after we deliver everything, this is 1 week. So at this point, the patient is speaking very excited about his new veneers. And I really like this patient because he's very nice, and every time he goes back home, he always sends us photographs of himself, smiling, and then giving us updates on the swelling and the feelings and things like that. And I remember this video that he was telling me that after getting this, in a week when he came back, he was both happy, but he was also very sad. And he was happy because now he has new teeth that he's very glad that he did. But he was also sad because he's had this problem since he was about 20-ish to 30. And he's now 50, so he was thinking that he could have gotten this 20 years ago. You know, he wasted about 20 years of his life being ugly, according to him. Now, I didn't tell him that 20 years ago this is not possible because Sarek was not there yet. But that's the way he felt about this teeth. So this is 1 year follow-up. Remember that we changed a lot of his tooth structure because the functional difference is also very different. Again, I'm going to zoom in and take a look at these teeth. So, if you look at these teeth, it's the same as before. We have intrinsic translucency, so this is the actual color and translucency of the ceramic. And then we also have very, very slight extrinsic staining that we did to make it more look realistic. Now I know that he chose a very white teeth. It's very difficult to make really white teeth look natural, but we do what we can with the extrinsic staining to make it look as natural as possible. Okay? And I want to bring your attention also to tooth number 22. With the proper thickness control, the ceramics will look the same color. Okay, so this is before, and this is after. And like I said before, the way we can tell somebody's teeth is crooked is not because their individual teeth are moving out of alignment. Nobody cares about that. When we look at a person, it's the outline of the teeth, right? So look at the bottom teeth, where there's a step. That's the thing that we notice. So when we do treatments, we make sure to fix that as a first priority. And recently he came back for a 2-year follow-up, still got the same smile, and still very happy about his smile. So this is kind of like a clinical application of what we talked about earlier today. So we have ceramic selection, and we also have staining, all done chairside with CEREC in a single day. So I just want to recap, is that when we do cases like this, so this is a before and after, whether you choose something that is really bright, like that older gentleman before, or like this young guy, he just wanted his teeth to look natural. This can all be done with the proper ceramic selection and with the proper staining techniques, which I've shown you today. Now, obviously, it's not as easy as I make it sound to be, because as with any skill, you need to practice. So with the staining, even though I said that yes, we can do it in about 10 minutes per teeth, it does take a lot of practice, and this is why we have workshops and things like that, if you're interested. So this, today, I talked a little bit about the anterior digital dentistry workflow, specifically pertaining to external staining. Now, with the time that we have, unfortunately, we can't talk too much into other things, but hopefully I've given you a peek at what is possible, and that is my presentation. Thank you very much.